We're diving deep into all the qualities that make your body unique. Beauty care, health and wellness, everything you want to know about being your best, most radiant self.
Decades of industry experience, passionate about empowering holistic health and inner beauty, mother and daughter working together to transform the world of beauty, self-care, and well-being. I'm Beata.
I'm Tash. This is the Skincare Podcast by BSE. Welcome back to the Skincare Podcast by BSE. Today, we're going to be speaking with Valerie PotterJohns from ZO Skin Heath. Valerie has so much experience in the company. She is the Vice President in Business Development and has so much knowledge. So we're just so excited to be speaking with her today about Hydroquinone specifically and how it helps with discoloration, as discoloration is a huge concern that so many people are currently trying to target and get rid of. So welcome, Valerie.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Beata and Tash. Thank you. I'm really thrilled to be speaking with you today on a topic that I'm personally really passionate about. And I do think this is a really valuable topic for you to bring to the table because there's so many people that are confused with how to treat their pigment. So thank you for that. And I'm excited to get started on this discussion with you.
Yeah, us too. So, Valerie, you and I go way back. I mean, we've both been in the industry a really long time. So we're really, really honored to have you here with us. I'm excited to be speaking to you about this really important subject. But just before we get started, we'd love for you to take a minute or two just to introduce yourself, tell us about your journey in the skincare industry, and also talk about how you got involved with ZO Skin Heath.
Okay. So, yes, Beata, we have had a long history together. And sometimes I look back and I wonder, where has the past 40 years gone? And the consistent in that 40 years has actually been, I think, both our passion for skincare and for the beauty industry as a whole. So I am an esthetician, trained esthetician, and I've had a very diverse career, and I'd like to share that with all of the young estheticians out there. So I have had the opportunity of doing aesthetics in a spa setting. I've managed spas. I've actually been a national trainer for many other skincare lines, particularly spa lines in the 80s and early 2000s. And then I had an opportunity to start up a chain of day spas and did that for about a good 10 years. And then basically I could just see a shift in the industry where people were looking for more high performance ingredients and concepts and protocols. And, the introduction of Botox and filler and how people now wanted to do more for their skin at home. And that's what brought me to ZO Skin Heath and to the teachings of Dr. Zein.
That's amazing. You have so much experience in in the spa as an esthetician and now as the VP in business development, which I think is incredible.
Yeah, it is great. And it's you've seen everything, right? You've seen the entire evolution, which is such an exciting subject on its own, like the process of where we were with skin and where we are with skin today. And I do have to say that ZO Skin Heath is one of my personal favorite brands. We do see an enormous amount of results, and it's in our clinic at the Medi Spa and also with our patients that we service in Canada. It's just incredible what the brand has done for the skin industry. So just to debunk a little bit about, many people say ZO Skin Heath and many people say ZO Skin Heath. So why? What is ZO Skin Heath?
Okay, so ZO Skin Heath, the ZO stands for Dr. Zein. Dr. Zein is the principal physician behind this brand. He is a leading dermatologist globally. He is really the physician that brought physician dispensed skincare to the focal point. So he's world famous, educator, a very passionate speaker, and his really what he's well known for is the treatment of pigmentation, because he changed the game with his principles. And that's what we're going to dig deep into today.
Oh, I can't wait.
I'm so excited for this.
Okay, I can't wait. Yeah. So let's get into it. So hydroquinone. Hydroquinone is used to lighten the skin. Can you tell us what it is?
Yeah, so hydroquinone is a complex chemical compound, and it's used to bleach and blend the pigment that resides in both the upper level of the epidermis and the dermis. So when we put a patient on hydroquinone, it is a commitment from the patient and from the person that is managing this treatment program. So it's a full process, and hydroquinone should not be started and stopped abruptly. You should have a plan. You should be managed. And it's very important that we don't just bleach the skin by using one hydroquinone product, but we also bleach and follow a principle of blending, which I can explain further in a few moments.
Yeah. So there's 2% hydroquinone that's used for cosmetic use, and then there's 4%, which is prescription, right? So you would need to get from a doctor.
Yeah, and it actually goes up to about an 8% by some dermatologists in really complex situations. But the most important thing about hydroquinone is that you don't stay on it long term. The maximum treatment program should not be any longer than a 5-month period. And it doesn't mean that you just stop managing pigment, but you have to give your skin a little bit of a rest. And that you can do that very easily by following some of the high potency retinol protocols that we have at ZO Skin Heath. So really the format should be when you start a full hydroquinone program, and it means you're going to be bleaching morning and night. And in ZO Skin Heath in Canada, we have a 2% pigment control cream. And that pigment control cream would be applied in the morning over daily power defense, which is one of the products that we recommend to really restructure and rebuild the skin barrier function. So that's critical. So we're rebuilding the skin barrier function. Then we're going to apply a bleach over the top. And then, of course, if someone's working on managing the pigment, they'll have to use a really good sunscreen, right? And avoid the sun. So common sense really prevails here. And then in the evening, the patient again would reapply the daily power defense to restructure that skin barrier function, apply the bleach again, which is the pigment control cream. But the next step is critical. And this really is a game changer with pigment control. So they have to do something which Dr. Obagi really invented, which is the blending part of the management of the system. And this blending is by combining 1 pump of pigment control and blending with 4 pumps of wrinkle and texture repair, which is a high potency retinol. Why this step is so important is that if you just bleach the skin, you can end up with hypopigmentation. So you end up with a little bit of brown pigment, but then you could also end up with white pigment. So the process of mixing the hydroquinone with the high potency retinol creates an action, which to some people might sound a little silly because we're working on reducing pigment. But when you mix that hydroquinone with the retinol, you're actually forcing controlled amounts of pigment to come to the surface of the skin. So what we end up with is not skin that doesn't look the color it's supposed to be. We end up with skin that is perfectly colored, but without the pigmentation. And if you miss the blending step, you're not going to get the phenomenal results that you can achieve.
Oh, I'm so happy to learn that, Valerie, because it's just such an important thing for people to understand that when you're really dealing in general with any kind of issues with the skin, you really do need to follow a program. and be managed properly in that process.
You do. And when I said before, you never stop hydroquinone suddenly. So what our process would be with month 1 to 3, that would be where you're actually on your full protocol. And then starting month 4, for the first 2 weeks, you start to titrate off. And when you titrate off, you're using other high potency retinols and other protocols to maybe a couple of times a week. So you're over a period of about 8 weeks, you're going to reduce your frequency with the hydroquinone and increase your frequency with a retinol-based protocol. And then at the end of that 5 months, you stop for 3 months.
Okay.
And you're just managing the pigment will have really significantly been reduced. But then for that 3-month period, you're managing with an advanced protocol. And then you can go back onto the hydroquinone protocol exactly that way, month 1 to 3, then to start titrating off and then rest. And this principle has been used by Dr. Obagi for over 35 years, and it's called his pulse therapy plus titration concept. And it really, really works.
I love it.
So how long would you recommend for someone to be on this cycle? Like, is it like they can do it forever, or until they see that the pigment has significantly reduced?
You know, some people will need to stay on it forever, but it's very important that they do take the breaks.
So that 3 months.
That's right.
3 months.
Exactly. And if they don't take the break, a couple of things will happen. First of all, they could get rebounding action of the pigment. So the pigment could come back worse. And then another condition is onchronosis, which is where the pigment actually turns really black and purpley in color. And then they're limited. They won't be able to do hydroquinone anymore because they've probably become resistant to that ingredient.
Oh, very interesting.
Oh, okay. So that is, I mean, I find that incredibly helpful in understanding the process and the management of the system. But who should be using hydroquinone? Like, what's the right candidate? And are there any people or any skin tones that can't use hydroquinone?
No, there's no skin tones that cannot use hydroquinone. I think it's very important that the skin be healthy before the patient starts using hydroquinone. So for that, at ZO Skin Heath, we would recommend like a really good conditioning treatment where they're using the GSR and their daily power defense. So GSR is a really good cleanser, regular exfoliation, using a functional toner. Daily power defense is going to rebuild that barrier function. Once the skin has developed some type of tolerance, then you can introduce these high active ingredients. So really the answer is anybody can use it who is really struggling with difficult pigmentation. And as long as the most important thing is that they follow the principles. And also a lot of physicians that we work with use hydroquinone to prepare their skin for really active laser treatments or anything that's going to induce thermal energy into the skin. So we actually have preconditioning protocols, which we do use hydroquinone for sometimes.
Okay.
And
wow.
So someone who has melasma, hyperpigmentation, chloasma would all use hydroquinone.
Yes. Particularly if they've never used it before. If they've used it before for a long period of time, it would be recommended that they go on to a high potency retinol protocol, because obviously if they've used it for a very long period of time, there is a chance that they've become resistant to the ingredient.
Okay.
So, and then I think also it's really understanding, is it sun damage or is it really difficult pigment? So one of the things that Dr. Obagi teaches us too is what we call the stretch test. So if you've got pigmentation and you stretch the skin and that pigmentation lightens, that is probably upper epidermal, and we can probably get rid of that pigmentation without using a hydroquinone. But if you stretch the skin and the pigment does not change color, that means that that pigment is epidermal, dermal, vertical, horizontal, and that means we have to pull out the big guns, and that's where hydroquinone comes into play.
That's so interesting. I've never heard of that before. I'm going to go to the mirror
I like
after
that.
this.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me.
I'm going to stretch my skin for sure.
Well, Tashi and I both have hyperpigmentation, like both of us. It's in my family, but I think is it something that you define as being genetic as well as environmentally induced kind of thing?
It can be genetic, environmentally induced, also hormonal induced, and also medications. Certain medications that we take will induce pigmentation. So that's the important part of having a thorough consultation when you're working with your pigmentation, and making sure that all of these questions have been asked. We find sometimes people who work in restaurants who are, over hot stoves all the time. They say, I never go in the sun, but they don't think that their job and that heat on their skin all the time could be inducing that or initiating that melanogenesis cascade.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so complex.
It is,
but
yeah.
I like that we're debunking it and making it really simple for everyone to sort of understand, and like for myself as well.
Yeah.
Right. And
So
the other one thing, and I'll just make a point of this, is that a lot of people don't understand the importance of oil control when we're working with pigmentation, because sebum or oils left on the skin induce inflammation. And there always has to be an inflammatory action that initiates that melanogenesis cascade. So oil control is also very important when we treat pigmentation. And that also is one of Dr. Obaj's principles that he's very strict about when he's recommending a protocol for pigmentation.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't know that, Valerie. Yeah. I always learn these. I love these
That's why we do these
conversations because we learn so much when we're doing it, So how long typically does someone start see results and if they're following the proper protocol?
If they're following a full protocol where they're washing their skin, they're controlling their oil, they're restructuring their barrier function with a product like Daily Power Defense, they're bleaching and blending and following this, and doing it every single day. So therefore, this is an aggressive protocol. So there will be some redness and there could be some irritation, which is perfectly normal, particularly for the first 6 weeks. We can negate that with a product that we have called Hydrating Creme, which helps to soothe and replenish and helps to get them through that initial reaction. The initial reaction is good. It's a good sign. It's a sign of repair. So we're not afraid of anticipated reactions, but we know how to handle them. If the patient is following all of those steps, and I always say to people when I meet them that really want to work on their pigmentation, I ask them, how committed are you? Because this is not something that you can dabble with. This is something that you have to jump into. You have to be accountable and you have to do the steps morning and night, and you have to follow a full routine. If all those boxes are checked, then by month 3, the patient will start to have good results. And then if they titrate off slowly and following the directions and using a high potency protocol, then by month 5, I can basically guarantee that they will be extremely happy with how much even skin tone they have. Their skin will look healthy. It will be healthy from within. It will be more very, very smooth looking and even in tone and natural color. And then if necessary, they take the 3 months off where they manage and they follow another full protocol for managing that in between stage, and then they can go back on. So really the answer is that within 3 months, they'll start to see results. By 5 months, they'll get even better results. But this is something that we can manage if they follow the pulse therapy.
Okay. And so let's say someone does their first cycle. So they do it for the 5 months and then they go off for 3 months. How would you recommend if someone has to do the cycle again? And if someone were to do the cycle again and it's not necessary, is that counteractive? Would that do any damage?
I think that people with melasma are always going to have to manage their condition.
Okay.
So but quite often, and it's a great question, quite often after they've done the one cycle, if they've done it properly, they can manage their melasma with a non-hydroquinone protocol. So that will be a protocol that they can stay on for the rest of their life, and they don't have to pulse on and off.
Okay.
Only when we introduce the hydroquinone, that's only the time that we have to titrate off. And then we follow the exact same routine. It doesn't change.
Okay. Interesting.
So it's very interesting. So you talked a little bit before about the kind of the inconveniences of going on hydroquinone and the irritation and stuff. So what kind of reactions, not the right word, but what kind of side effects or results? I don't even know how to express that properly. Like the inconveniences of going on a hydroquinone are there, even though the conveniences are like long-term or so spectacular. People should know what to expect and what kind of things can happen.
That's right. So I think that it's important for patients to understand that redness, flakiness, and some irritation is very normal. And we actually clap our hands and we're like, great, you're doing a good job. And we're celebrating that reaction because we know that this condition is so complex that without creating some type of a reaction, we're not going to get the results. So no reaction, no results. And it's always astounding to me because people will pay thousands of dollars for a laser treatment. And if they don't get a reaction, they're upset because then they say, well, this treatment didn't work. But when it's a cream that's giving them the reaction, sometimes we hear words like, well, I had an allergic reaction.
Yeah, it's not an allergic reaction.
Well, it's not an allergic reaction. It's a normal anticipated reaction. But the patient needs to know that, and you have to be okay with that. And you have to understand that if you're following the full protocol, that normal anticipated reaction can actually last up to 6 weeks. But if you've done it well, and when you realize that there's really very little you can do for melasma, I think 6 weeks is short to get
in the big picture, right? And you have to also think about, how long did it take you to get all of this on your face? And so like it takes years and years and years for that to accumulate and start to happen and to show and expose itself. So it takes the time to take it off. And in the big picture, like 6 weeks is nothing. It's like a snap of the fingers, right?
Exactly. And we break it down into a 6-week repair phase, a 6-week improvement phase, and then a 6-week completion phase. So that's what people have to really commit to.
So I guess really managing expectations also for people and explaining it. That's why I thought that this kind of conversation around hydroquinone is so important because, there's so much misinformation out there through these like social media channels like TikTok or, just the internet in general. And people have all these opinions about it, but they don't necessarily understand all the facts. So we wanted to make sure that people getting into this would understand the facts, how to use it, and to help them to understand like the process.
Yes.
You talked before about you can't just stop using hydroquinone from one day to the next. And what could happen if you did, for example? Is there something that could happen that your skin would react also?
Yeah, I think you have to really dig down to the mechanism of action here. We are suppressing melanocyte activity. So we're suppressing. When you've been suppressing something for a period of time, and then all of a sudden you just stop, you can create some very erratic behavior within the skin, and that will be severe pigmentation rebound. So that's why we titrate slowly off, so that we're not getting those cells extremely excited quickly. We're doing it, we're weaning them off. And that's very, very important. And unfortunately, there's a lot of miseducation out there. So a lot of people have stopped and started and then gone on something else or had a peel that they didn't really understand what the key ingredients were. So quite often people are making their pigmentation worse by trying so many little different things without a really set plan. So that's why I feel really lucky to represent ZO Skin Health and follow the teachings of Dr. Zeno Baji, because he has mastered this. This is not something I'm saying, oh, I think you should try that because I think it might work. These teachings work because Dr. Obaji has dedicated his career to the successful management of pigmentation, and he will take on cases that nobody else will look at. So, he's got doctors all over the world that, really do believe in his teachings and the results that he can achieve.
And I'm sure you guys must have like tons and tons of clinicals, right? Like before and afters of where the journeys that people have gone on.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Absolutely.
Very cool. So I really like this podcast. I think it was great that we debunked a lot of the hydroquinone and also educated people that reactions to, like when you're on a cure, when you're using active ingredients, reactions are sometimes very good, and that it's not always an allergic reaction, and you have to be patient, but you also have to follow the protocol properly to get the best results. I do have one question. You mentioned before that for some of these side effects, you could have redness, flaking. Is it true that also when you're targeting pigmentation that you actually might get more darkness, like more, your browns will come out a little bit more before they disappear?
Yes, that does happen. It can happen for sure.
Okay.
That's normal, and it's to be expected. I think when we're lifting pigment to the surface to purge, I think that just makes sense that as it comes close to the surface, it will get somewhat darker. And also when the skin is reddened, pigment looks a little darker as well. So if we're initiating a reaction and the skin's getting a little red, then pigment automatically just picks up more color. Right. So yes, that can happen. And I think it's also important that we do have solutions, and you have solutions that will not create reactions, but will just take longer to work. So if you have someone that says, absolutely no, I cannot be red or flaking, maybe it's a celebrity that, is on TV every night and they can't be red or peeling. High definition cameras are not forgiving. So in that case, we can treat the pigment, but we have to take another approach, and we just need more time to get to where we need to get to.
Consistency and patience.
Yeah. Which is not a quality of a lot of people. Once they get to that point, they're like, okay, I've had enough. I need to do something about that. I know I've done that many times in my life, but that's just not the way it works in skincare. You really have to be patient and consistent with your routine. I love the things that you're saying too, because the messaging for me is really important around really getting on a program. So I love that about ZO Skin Health, is that you have a lot of programs. And so no matter what your concern is, you get into that program, but you're using a full routine. That's one product complements the other, and they all work synergistically together so that the end game is that you get the results that you're looking for. We do and preach that every single day of our lives in skincare. Like, huge. Even if somebody's not on a hydroquinone system or somebody's treating acne, it's the same messaging all the time to manage expectations, but also make sure that the people are using products that are designed and
work together,
scientifically proven to work together in synergy,
It's so important. I think there's kind of like this trend out there, and I think it is, try this or try this. And people don't realize that they're making their conditions sometimes worse. Sometimes you have to put everything aside and say, I'm going to follow this prescription, this protocol. I'm going to do it from A to Z, and I will commit.
Yeah,
and I always remind people that you can't train for a marathon in a month.
No, you definitely can't.
And it's also the same when reversing so many years of damage. Like, you can't just expect your acne or your pigmentation or the wrinkles to disappear in a couple of weeks, know?
That's right. Exactly.
Great. That's so great. I love that about ZO, that it's really in that systems. It's really getting on a system and following the system and being committed to it.
Mhm.
And then you get the results, which is beautiful, So we always ask this one question as we're kind of leading towards the end of podcasts. We ask our guests always to share one skincare product that you're currently using and loving, and why.
I love all my children in ZO. I love them all. Currently, I'm really enjoying using our firming serum, I have an interesting skin because I'm aging oily skin. So I need to use very lightweight textured products. And the firming serum delivers some flash hydration, but it's really working on laxity issues. So people that have aging oily skin, it's a bit of a myth to think that you will age slower than dry skin. You'll just age differently.
Mm-hmm.
So dry skin presents earlier with fine lines and wrinkles, but an aging oily skin presents with laxity and textural issues. So I'm using the firming serum twice a day right now. I use it at nighttime under my growth factor serum. And then in the daytime, I use it over my daily power defense. So that right now, this week, that's my go-to. Next week, I'm probably going to do the retinol stimulation peel, which I do every fall. So now my skin is at optimum health. I can do a retinol stimulation peel and get very little peeling. But that's just because I've taught my skin how to handle these high potency ingredients.
Mm-hmm. Well, your skin looks fabulous. I was like sitting here looking at you going, Valerie, what are you doing? Your skin looks fabulous.
It does.
Yeah, it really does.
And so also we love to ask, what is your best skincare tip that you can give our listeners today?
Be gentle with your skin. Don't be rough with your skin.
Mm-hmm.
Use excessively hot water on your skin or hot showers. Always tempered temperatures. Don't pick at your skin. Big thing. Don't squeeze. But mostly just be gentle. I've seen pigment caused on people's skin from aggressive cleansing techniques.
Like that's because it's inflammation, right?
Over exfoliating, for example.
Using loofahs on their skin, really scrubbing their skin too hard. This, particularly in darker skin types, this can be a major cause for inflammation and pigment. So really just being very gentle with their skin. That's my tip.
Mm-hmm.
Always never leave home without your sunscreen.
Of course, that goes without saying, especially if you're on a hydroquinone routine, but for every routine, but especially, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so for our listeners who want to if this is their first time discovering ZO, where can they
ZO.
I'm going to have to train myself to say ZO now. But where can our listeners find and learn more information about ZO on socials?
Yeah, ZO has a very comprehensive website, zeoskinhealth.ca, and all of the products are listed there, all the key ingredients and how to use each of the products. And I have to say thank you to you guys because you're huge fans and the level of education that you bring to the table is a game changer in the industry. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. That means so much to us.
It does mean a lot to us because we just want everybody in Canada and also worldwide, but we're dealing with the Canadian population. We just want everybody to know about this stuff. This is there's so much information out there. And there are so many solutions for people and people just don't know about it. So we just want everybody to know about it.
Yeah. And I think that educating our listeners and Canadians on how easy it can be and how accessible professional skincare is, I think that's really important because, like you said, there's so much information like TikTok, Instagram, Google, it's just crazy. So to have a sound, comfortable place to come listen to professionals and industry leaders speak about ingredients and different topics, I think is extremely important.
Yeah.
Right.
We're ready for it.
We are, that's for sure.
Thank you so much, Valerie, for joining us. We hope that you're going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
We'd love to talk about some other subjects with you.
Something else for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. My pleasure to be with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Skincare Podcast. It would mean so much to us if you could subscribe to our podcast and rate and review. Follow our new journey on Instagram at Skincare Podcast to be the first to know when our episodes are dropping and more. This podcast is produced by Northweld Media. We look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.